Hello all, and welcome back to a new episode of TV and Us, a conversation show about the TV series we just can't stop talking about. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And we are joined by Dillon. Dillon, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Dillon Laney. Happy to be here.
All right. Yes, Dillon's on this The Last of Us journey with us. We're very excited about it. So each season we focus on a different show, reviewing it episode by episode, and we invite you to watch along with us. Right now, as you know, we are reviewing and covering The Last of Us Season 2, and today we are on Episode 3, titled The Path. Sarah, do you want to kick us off with a summary for this third episode?
Sure. After Dina shares crucial intel, Ellie prepares to petition the town council. Near Seattle, a religious group flees a war.
All right, so let's share our episode titles for this third episode. Dillon, what's yours?
The gang tries politics.
Yeah.
Lots of
yes,
talking.
They do. Yes,
Lots
they do.
Of talking.
Yep.
Lots of talking. Sarah, what is your episode title?
My episode title is No.
Oh, great choice. Great choice. My episode title is Cookies.
Yes. There are some cookies exchanged in this.
Yes. Oh, yes, along with some information. Okay, well, before we dive into fully the plot points of this episode, let's roundtable temp check. How did we feel about episode 3? Sarah, we're out of Jackson. Kind of. Almost. Sort of.
Indeed.
Thoughts?
Okay, here's the thing. I have reached the point in the year where I'm just wondering, do I like things? Do I like movies? Do I like TV shows? Am I the problem here? This episode was not the vibe. Like, I am happy that we're out of Jackson. Praise the Lord. But this is not how I wanted to get out of Jackson. So I think I'm going to have an issue with this season of this show because I'm wanting something just so fundamentally different than what this show is wanting to do. And I have feelings about it. And I'm kind of not really looking forward to the rest of the season if we keep going the way that we're going. I did not enjoy this episode. This wasn't it. This wasn't the vibe. I might be the problem, but nope, I didn't want this.
Nope, it's not you. You're not the problem.
Oh, great. Okay. That makes me feel better.
Yeah, I in this episode started to have doubts about what this season is going to sum up to at the end for me, because this episode I did not think was a good one at all. I was pretty frustrated sitting through most of it. It just felt slow. The pacing was off. Even some of the things that they chose to copy over from the game, which I think has a phenomenal story, it's like they're copying all the worst sections that just are unnecessary and then are just filling in a bunch of other stuff that I don't think is really moving the narrative along in a meaningful way.
Yeah, and we only have, 4 more episodes of this season? So I almost feel like we haven't even gotten started yet. You know, I think in our previous conversation was saying that this third episode is going to feel like the first episode of the season because we've now done the transitional setup stuff and now we're going. And I almost feel like maybe episode 4 will be the first episode of the season, in which case they've only got 3 more episodes of runway to tell a story. And it was making me think about a comment that you had made, I think in our first episode review discussion, Dillon, around them stretching perhaps narrative arcs and needing to fill space and time over the course of 2 seasons. And perhaps maybe episode 7, this end of this season 2, is going to end and feel more like a first half of something. I don't know, but I'm trying to theorize and hypothesize about some of the pacing choices, because this is feeling like we haven't gotten started yet, and we're nearly at the halfway point of the season. So I don't know what kind of story we're going to tell here.
Yeah, I yes, I do think that's spot on with what you're describing. I think HBO saw season 1 and got their grubby little mittens all over it, And we're like, we want to make more money. Please stretch it out. Because, yeah, with only having 4 episodes left, I will say there is a lot of narrative to get to that I'm like wondering, are we even going to be done at the end of episode or at the end of season 3 with how slow we're pacing things? So, yeah, we'll see. I guess we'll see how things shake out.
Because capitalism is alive and well. And they might be fueling a lot of the like narrative creative choices that we're seeing here. But it's fascinating to hear your commentary, Dylan, because you have a kind of holistic picture. So seeing where they're choosing to spend their time is really fascinating. I'm curious what things they might have chosen not to include in this episode that is in the game. So we'll get to that. Maybe we'll give a spoiler alert if you haven't seen episode 3 yet. I suppose if you're on this journey with us, we want to make sure that you get a chance to watch the episode before you listen to our commentary about some of the choices that were made in this 3rd episode. So, okay, where shall we dive in first? Let's talk about maybe the politicking, the voting, the council meeting. What were your thoughts about that whole sequence?
So many, but 16 people? That was the plan? 16? After we just had so many people. Like, who drew up this plan? Where's the amendment to be like, well, actually, I'd vote yes on it if it was 4 people. Like, what? Of course it was going to be a no. There was no suspense or like, ooh, I wonder if it's going to pass. They said 16 people and like my jaw about hit the couch. Like, what are we talking? I don't know. It was just so unrealistic, off the wall. I thought the speeches were just super kind of cheesy, corny. Yeah. I liked Ellie's note kind of, except for the part where like I didn't believe a word she was saying.
Yeah.
And also, sorry, I'm throwing a lot, but also
I
like,
love it.
Ellie coming from like being injured with a punctured lung or presumably something terrible. She looks the healthiest she's looked in any episode so far, and then is also speaking super coherently, more focused on top of things than she ever has, while again recovering from a major wound and waking up screaming, reliving the death of Joel. I don't know. It just like Ellie suddenly does a 180 to be the most like healthy, well-balanced person I've ever seen. And I don't really get a lot of the show telling me more about how she's grieving and just trying to put on a brave face to get what she wants. They're just presenting her outside of like the first 30 seconds. The rest of the show, they're like, yep, she's locked in. She's here for justice. She's a really just locked in person right now. I don't know. None of it really, I don't think any of it worked for me.
And that, like, politics scene, I think could have been so interesting too, coming from a person who loves The West Wing with my entire being. So like shows about people just talking I'm here for that. But like it needs to be done well. So like if you have this insane proposal for 16 people, which I agree is way too many, I want to know the details. Like give me your thought out plans. I want to know why you need these people to accomplish what. Like I want to see this proposal in full and like understand the why behind it. And so then maybe if I understood the why and how they came to all these conclusions, which if you're doing that, it can't be 16 because that's too many. But like, I want to know what that process is. Get me invested in this plan, and then let's go to the town council and have it be this like back and forth business. Let there be some real deliberation, but like have me be invested in this trip, because even though I wanted to leave Jackson, I was like, I'm not invested in this trip because it's never going to happen. So like there needed to be some real tension in that, and us to really have our hopes set on this trip and really believe that this is the only way for them to accomplish their goal. So then that way, when the council votes it down, we're really like crushed by it. And like, we feel that sense of like disappointment. Instead, it's just like, well, Ellie was always going to do this on her own anyway. It was always going to be her and Dina going off and doing this. So why did we waste so many minutes on this council scene that wasn't even interesting? Like, there's a way to make what happened in this episode interesting, and they just chose not to do it.
What I would have also loved to see in this version of a dramatic vote and whatnot is to see the way that the different people that we've gotten to know in Jackson, these characters, so Jesse, Tommy, Mary, I would love to see them like the vote being a commentary on like their different points of view about the complicated and contrasting moralities that are a part of what does revenge mean? How are we redefining that as justice? How do we protect our own people versus also honor the people that we've loved and lost? Like, I just would have found it so interesting to see the spectrum of reactions from Mary, Tommy, and Jesse and all the things they are wrestling through with this interesting, difficult situation and how that maybe informs their votes and how they might change their votes last minute because of new memories that are brought up from that. I just think that like this could have been a really cool way to showcase how people respond to difficult things and complicated scenarios in different ways and how that informs their ultimate decision, which then could maybe be the final reveal of the episode of how they each voted and then Ellie's reactions to them voting. Because they set up so many conversations with Ellie and each of them around, so you're going to back me, right? And they're like, yeah, I'm going to back you. But what informs that for each of them and how does that bring up different things from their past? I would have loved to see this almost be like a collage of each of those different characters and what that says about their relationship to vengeance versus justice versus losing people and then their personal relationships with Joel. Like, I think all of that could have been really interesting and very dramatic. And like you said, Sarah, could have played up the drama of the results of the vote. But more importantly, it's what does that say for each of the humans that are part of the vote?
And there also could have been some interesting things around like betrayals too, somebody telling Ellie that they're going to vote with her and then they don't. Like, there's a lot of really interesting character things that you can do with such a consequential vote like this. But they don't. And I don't understand why. Like, if you're going to half-ass a political scene, like, why do it? Just scrap that and let's do something else. You could just like add in a throwaway line of the council voted and they said no, so now I'm going to do it myself. And we could have gotten so many more minutes to go do other things rather than wasting it in a boring council meeting.
See, and along those lines, that's what I wished they would have done, is instead of like this diplomatic, let's maybe send people officially to go do it, I wish it, like, Ellie and Dina would have been like, we're leaving, we're going to go do it. And then the council was like, hang on, you're going to get all of us in trouble because if you're successful, they're just going to come back and do more bad stuff to us. So, like, we're not giving you permission to leave. We're going to, like, vote on it and tell you if you can leave or not. Then when the council says no, it's like, okay, well, it's just those two anyway. And now, are they going to rebel? Now we have some guilt and some drama and some connection back with Jackson and ramifications of what happens on the rest of their journey. Like, I thought that would have been such a more believable setup to a vote, give a little bit more intrigue in there. I don't know. It felt so lazy the way they did it. I wanted more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your version sounds great too. So basically, we just want any other version other than the one that we got.
Speaking of other versions, I want to talk about my man Seth. Because Seth, in 3 episodes, with very little screen time in each, goes from hurling slurs at Ellie to making her sandwiches to giving away horses and guns and breaking a lot of rules. And none of it, I don't know. I don't know how y'all feel about Seth, but it just does not, it's not clicking for me. It was too much, too fast.
So I'm not going to lie, when you said my man Seth, I didn't remember who that was. And then once you started talking, then I remembered who that was. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that guy. But yeah, I do agree that it's too fast and the show is skipping over the good part, because the good part is the character transformation and the character journey and seeing somebody go from the literal worst to being helpful. That's an interesting process to go on. And instead it's just like, nope, we see him be the worst. And then, okay, we're 3 months in the future after they all survived a terrible tragedy, and now he's nice. And like, do I believe that time and a terrible tragedy could help change your perspective and change your mind and how you relate to the world? Yes. But I would have liked to have seen that growth rather than just like, oop, now he's a friend. Now it's fine. Like, it was, it also didn't work for me, clearly.
Yeah, there isn't really a larger point that the show's trying to make with him, I feel like. I would rather have just seen like Ellie and Dina just steal some of the resources because they're just zeroed in on their vision and their goal, and have that be part of the complicated decision making that they're making of like, this place has taken care of us, but then we need to go seek vengeance for this personal person that was a loved one. How do we reconcile those things? And like you mentioned, Dillon, in your version, the conflict of Ellie and Dina and what they do and how that puts Jackson in danger and more vulnerable is a really interesting set of implications for some of their actions that would have been really cool for them to have to wrestle with. The one part about Seth's role in this episode, at least, and it could have been like congruent or like in conversation with some of those scenes on the New Year's Eve night, is that his language that he uses preys on that kind of self-preservation and kind of like fueling of an aggressive reaction to things. So in the way that he speaks, he's very much like, we are justified and we should be seeking vengeance out of protection for ourselves, and almost this fear-based motivation of like, if we don't, they're going to come back for us type of language. And I'm just like, where have we heard that in our political landscape before, of just like preying on fear, preying on panic to fuel kind of aggressive responses to complicated issues, you know? And I thought like that was interesting that was included. It's almost like, I don't know if the show intends to, but kind of a meta commentary on like the state of politics in America today. But I thought that would have been really interesting to put in congruence with his actions in the New Year's Eve scenes, and then don't give him a redemptive arc, you know? Like, make him kind of suck, but like, this is the mental state that he occupies and is putting forth that can be quite toxic in a small community like this and fuel reactions that are unhealthy for the sake of this community being really healthy. I think that would have been really fun, but I did not buy the whole redemptive arc that they were trying to sell me at all.
Yeah, and similar to that, just to play some inside ball as you're talking about kind of the redemptive arc and what maybe the show might have been going for. On the IMDb page for this episode, it actually has a trivia section that specifically talks about this. And Neil Druckmann, who was the head of creative for Naughty Dog and a huge part of The Last of Us, the video game, he's obviously involved with the show's writing, but Druckmann apparently cried when reading this draft because he was moved by Seth being the one to like advocate for Joel and Ellie despite his issues with them and them like clashing. And for Druckmann, he thought that it was like this like big kind of pivotal moment about the reflection of how people with opposing values can like reconsider them when something tragic happens or becomes more real to them. And so I think this might have been just a lost in translation. It looks good on a sheet of paper, but then when they get to execution, it just doesn't land. But I worry that this is like the end of this note, and we were supposed to be left with this really heartwarming moment. And I'm afraid the relationship's not going to go anywhere further, and this is just going to be a kind of dead on arrival. I don't even know what to call it, but yeah, I think they were trying to do something like that with a bigger commentary, and I think it just missed the mark completely.
Or maybe just not enough time, like maybe 2 more scenes with him, or just him looking. I don't know, just like even a few like implied scenes cut in there in a montage would have helped us like make those mental leaps from like one lily pad to the next lily pad to see how he like crosses the river to the other side. Yeah, but fascinating to see that was like an incredibly emotional moment. I wonder if there's something about the show which I think is a theme, which is that like the sheer kindness of other people that are even willing to be self-sacrificing is so rare in this apocalyptic environment. Everyone's out for themselves, protecting themselves, that I could see how that could have been moving in some way. You know, I'm thinking about that scene in season 1 where Joel offers his last bite of his cracker bread to, I think it was Henry and Sam, because they saw that they've been hungry for a long time, and just that little like detail meant so much because it's so rare in this environment. And maybe there's like they were trying to capture the essence of that and put it here, but not enough like setup for it to really land. The intention could have been great, but we need a little more refinement, people. Yeah. Other
Mm-hmm.
things that are notable about some of the choices in this episode.
What well, this is going to be a weird question because Dillon, you know what this means. But I guess Jen, for the
Yeah.
we're in Jackson, and then all of a sudden we cut to black, and then we're with this other group in this other location.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was very disoriented. I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't understand what's going on. I don't understand who these people are. Did I miss something? Was I not paying attention? Did I wander off mentally somewhere else? And we wound up in this other location with these people. Like, I was so confused
Yeah.
that I didn't know what to do with myself. Were you also confused by this group that we were randomly introduced to, and then they were all brutally murdered? Like, what?
Yeah. It's an interesting structure because I kept waiting I kept hovering over, look at the timestamps, and I was like, okay, we've got 10 minutes left. I'm sure that Ellie and Dina are going to come across these folks, and there's going to be some standoff or some fighting or some tension or something's going to happen as they face these people, because we learned about them at the beginning of the episode. I didn't think that they were all going to be dead by the end of the episode. So I was thinking about that. I think it's episode 8 or 7 in season 1 where Ellie comes across the religious cult. And I think that there was like a jarring moment at the beginning there too, where we like cut to them and I'm like, who are these people? But it's that setup is then paid off because we see Ellie fully have a whole standoff and interaction with them. So I thought that was what was happening, is like, okay, we're with Dina and Ellie, we're in Jackson. There are these people that are seemingly implied to be close by. And then as Ellie and Dina were embarking on their journey, I was expecting that they were going to come across them in some way, and it wasn't going to be good, but it was going to be dramatic and thrilling. And so I was left with a little bit of like oh, well, that's not what I was expecting by the end of the episode, because they're all dead. And actually there's this third group, which is the wolves that we learn about, obviously, that is actually their foe. And then we end on the cliffhanger. So I just thought structurally that didn't quite work for me, because we don't get an explosive ending or something to pay off the setup of that whole sequence we get with the father speaking to the little one. And I got excited about learning about them. I hope we get to see more of them. Religious cults are so interesting. I hope that there's more there, and that we don't just move along to focus on the wolves and don't even get anything about this group that we kind of spent some time with.
Yeah, I agree with everything y'all are saying. I don't think I have a lot of color to add without spoiling a bunch of stuff. I'm going to keep my mouth somewhat shut about this one, but I will say I agree with being kind of confused about like what we were doing here, why we were connecting these dots. I did find it really interesting that for as little time as we spent with them, the show tried to, I think, make an argument to humanize this cult quite a bit, which is going to be very interesting, because I could be totally crazy, but like I don't remember from the game ever forming much of a connection with the cult. So it is interesting that like our first introduction to it, where there's some sympathy being evoked here for them, right? Specifically with the child, right, being killed as well. They seem to just kind of be like mercilessly attacked, right? All these things. So I'll be curious to see what they do with that and where we might be headed with them. But yeah, it did feel really weird, and I was hoping that at the end of this frustratingly slow episode, we would have some big explosive moment. But I don't think this was that. I just kind of left me a little more confused.
I want to ask you more questions, Dylan, but I know that you probably can't answer them. So I'm sure we will discuss more about like the role that this religious cult potentially plays in the game, if maybe there's more about them that we'll uncover over the next few episodes. But I'm curious, Dylan, what are some of those things that maybe at this rough point in this larger story with the game, what are some of the things that the show is choosing to leave out that you found potentially interesting, and instead they've and decided to include the whole council discussion and politicking and stuff? Like, you kind of alluded to that at the beginning. I'm curious, at this point in the chronology, what are some of those other scenes that didn't make the cut?
Yeah, so for me, I think this goes back to my whole complaint, or starts with my complaint about the attack on the town. Because, for example, attack on the town, a bunch of people die that day. Joel also happened to die that day. So it kind of minimizes the death and the impact of Joel, who was important to the community. Add on to that Ellie is super injured and spends months in the hospital. And so by the time she comes out, there's very little mourning for Joel. I mean, the show does a couple nods to it, but right, we come out of the hospital and it's spring, it's sunny, we're all gardening together, and it just seems like thoughts of revenge have passed and isn't really being talked about until Ellie, finally gets out of the hospital. And so it just kind of starts on this weird note for me that is just slow and drawn out. I found it interesting, the whole thing with the council, because I don't remember them voting on it necessarily, but I will say somebody else leaves to go avenge Joel first. And in that person's note that they leave behind, they literally told Maria to, like, do not let Ellie go, chain her up, like, put her in jail if you have to, because, like, she's going to get herself hurt doing this. Like, I'm basically going to go handle it. And Maria is actually the one that gives them the horses and the guns and stuff, because she goes, I would follow this, but I know you're not going to listen to it, and you're going to break out and, like, do whatever you want to do anyway. So, if you're set on it, go do it. And, like, Dina's in the room, and she just looks at Dina and is like, I guess you're going too? And Dina's like, yeah, I am. And so she's like, all right, great. Here's your food and water. Get out of my town. Like, I don't know. It's just like it told... But it told more about that relationship. It told more about who Ellie and Dina are. And it was fast. It made it, like, punchy. And then I don't know. So just some of those stylistic choices going all the way back to the, like, town attack made all of it totally different. Because you also can't have somebody else rushing off to go avenge Joel and leaving a letter behind when Ellie's in the hospital for 3 months, right? They intentionally slowed all of this down, and I don't know why. I really don't know why, other than HBO just trying to pump more screen time out and make more money.
Well, and I think you bring up a really good point in that juxtaposition of, the town has moved on and Ellie is still stuck. Like, she was physically stuck in the hospital, but she is still emotionally stuck in that day and in that moment. And that dissonance between where she's at and where everyone else is at could have been really interesting to explore. That could have been a great source of friction and character moments and all of these really interesting things. So they set up something potentially interesting for the narrative arc and for Ellie's arc, and then they do nothing with it. And that is so frustrating.
I hadn't even realized that, but you saying that part, I went, man, we were robbed.
Mm-hmm.
This could have been really good. That's a great point. I hadn't made that connection. I was mourning the loss of the speed of the game, but yeah, you're right. With their slowness, they could have made this really interesting. Sarah, let's just go write episodes.
Okay, we got this. We got our little team together. We got our group. We can give this a whirl. We got ideas.
The choice for Maria to also be the person to give her the items is really interesting as well. Okay, so, like, let's get the Seth redemptive arc out of here, because we've gotten such a clear sense that her sense of morality and her conscience is so strong, and her ability to like steward that in the community is so present. And you've seen her call people out and whatnot throughout the course of the show when they're not aligning to that kind of North Star, that like center point. And so for her to make that choice, I think is also interesting in and of itself, for her to be the one to say, maybe out of protection for the town, like, you need to just go, and here's what you need, and go. But also maybe her relationship with Joel and him being Tommy's like brother, like all of that also informing her decision. It would be just fascinating to like think about her being the person to give them what they need to go and seek that vengeance or justice, however you want to call it.
And I think that also works in this slowed down version if we're exploring Ellie and her grief not matching with everybody else. Because I could very much see Maria being like, we're trying to get back to normal. Like, we're trying to function and move on, and you are the stick in the mud, and I kind of need you to go away. Like, I could see her doing that, not only just because Ellie needs this for the cathartic relief, but like, I need to get back to governing this town, and you are making it impossible for me to do so. Please leave. Like, that could be so interesting for that character too. Ugh. Why is this show messing around with Seth? We don't care about him.
Old crotchety white man. I don't know if that's. I don't know. It's an interesting choice. It's such a revision from what could be even more fascinating. So clearly there was like intention behind it that maybe isn't really landing. Okay, any other notable scenes, moments, choices from this episode? I thought one thing that was kind of subtle, but I think what did work for me, is that we get a couple of shots of Dina and Ellie on horseback going through these beautiful mountainscapes and these wide shots, and them kind of trying to pass the time and doing playing the like road trip car ride games, but also like bantering back and forth together while they're sharing one horse. And I thought that visually and kind of tonally, there was such a parallel to the way that Joel and Ellie spent so much time doing that on a horseback together, booking to pass the time as they went on their journey. So I thought that like implying of how the absence of Joel, but then also the way that Joel and Ellie kind of had a mirrored sense of like that time they spent together was something that did work for me. And I liked that it was subtly there, those visuals and kind of tonally the way that that's constructed in those few short clips really felt like a mirroring of what used to be, and now here's what is in the present of Joel and Ellie versus Dina and Ellie. So that was something that worked for me. I liked the subtlety of it, and I thought that worked quite well.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was good. I thought relationship building between the two of them, it just helps further how connected they are, right? So we went from kind of a random kiss on the dance floor, but now we really see a deeper relationship forming between the two of them. I mean, I guess if going on a vengeance quest with your girlfriend wasn't already enough of a relationship, but right, it was nice just seeing that scene play out and see the two of them connect like that. So definitely agree.
Yeah, I just I get that this season is doing something different than season 1, and I'm upset about it because I think the structure and the pacing of season 1 is what helps make The Last of Us so effective and sets it apart from all of the other like zombie apocalypse shows that we have, but I'm not going to get on that soapbox. But I wanted that not to be a montage. Like, it's all the things that we've already talked about this season of I wanted things to happen more quickly so we can spend more time on the adventures, like encountering different locations, encountering different potential people. Like, maybe if their journey had started earlier, then they could have run into the religious cult and then gone their separate ways. And then when they encounter them all dead, then that would have a greater emotional impact because our characters would have met them, as opposed to, like, I mean, obviously it's a whole bunch of people that were just murdered, including children, and that's awful. But like, if Ellie and Dina had talked to them or helped them, or maybe the religious cult helped them. Like, I don't know, like, there's a way, I think, to maximize that journey and also give us insight into some of the things that these characters are feeling and thinking. Like, obviously we know Ellie is grieving and she's on her quest for vengeance, but like, we spend so much time with Ellie in this, and I don't know, I didn't get a whole lot from her in this episode that I think should have been very emotional and weighty and deep. And I don't know, this whole episode just felt so surface level and shallow to me. And so I think that there's better ways to use all of these things. Like, there's so much potential here, and I feel like they just didn't capitalize on it, which is frustrating because the first season did it so much better.
Yeah, especially opening with the therapist scene, or I guess pretty quickly getting to the therapy scene. And I was like, oh, this is actually kind of interesting, right? Therapist knows Jill's side. She's got some good questions coming in. We're clearly setting up this, like, internal struggle in Ellie's mind with, what's going on. And then we veered away very quickly. And I get that we have like the sad walkthrough in the house, but other than that, I mean, like, Ellie doesn't seem to be this is a very surface level judgment, but the show doesn't do anything to tell me that Ellie is grieving any more deeply than just kind of a surface level, oh, I'm sad. When I think going on this like crazy vengeance quest to go find like 6 or 8 random strangers and murder them is something a lot more psychotic. There's a lot more anger and emotion and raw. And Ellie just presents as this very calm, level-headed, trying to make rational arguments with people. Like, I feel like Ellie should have been some of the most like chaotic energy in this episode. And she's already been pretty chaotic throughout all of season 1 and even what we've seen of season 2. So the fact that now she's the most well-adjusted just did not make sense. We didn't have that emotional punch and see that turmoil happening within her.
She should not have been able to give that speech as calmly as she did. And it's so interesting because they set it up for her to not. Jesse has a whole bit with her where he's like, you need to figure out how to remain cool, calm, and collected. And he says, no one's going to vote for angry. So they set it up where she's trying to hold together. But ultimately, what needs to happen is that she can't, because Joel meant so much to her and she's still grieving and she's still processing. So that scene should have played out where she's trying, she's got her little paper. And then at a certain point, like, she needs to just explode, because that's a lot of emotion that we assume that she's still feeling right now. So you're right. Like, 1, that whole speech is very cheesy. I agree with you, Dillon. But then 2, it shouldn't have even been that calm to begin with. It needs to be this outpouring of emotion that has not been dealt with. And so it's going to come out in this really public forum in front of everybody as she starts talking about him and seeing that no one's really aligned with her goals. And that needs to frustrate her, because she's channeling her. The whole premise of like her going and seeking vengeance is that she's channeling all that grief and pain into anger, because that's easier to deal with right now, because having to face and process that grief is overwhelming and far too much. So let's channel into anger, and that's our way to deal with it right now. And so that needs to have come out in more moments in this episode, I think. It's too early for her to be so calm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would have worked so much better. I really like our rewrite of this episode. I'm not gonna lie. Like, have her really stewing and just causing some issues, and so she's on like everybody's nerves, but they've been trying to give her kind of a wide berth, kind of walking on eggshells, like that whole vibe, as she's just kind of self-destructing and also destroying things around her as well, because she doesn't know what to do with her grief. And so then she comes to the council meeting and she's trying to be buttoned up, trying to have it together, trying to read her piece of paper, and like one little thing, maybe this is where Seth comes in, can just like set her off, and you can just see her, like that switch flip in her. Then everybody says no. Then Maria gives her the horses. Like, I feel like our rewrite could really work, and we would learn more about the characters, and it would be more interesting because things would actually happen. I don't know. There are better options available, I think, for these characters and for this story than what we got.
Let's give out some TVNS awards, shall we? The first category is Scrappiest Survivor. Let's share our choices for this one.
So I went with Dina, just because she actually showed up with a plan for going on this road trip that was very well researched. I appreciated the attention to detail with like the route they were going to take, the supplies they needed, like why they were going to take just one horse instead of multiple. Like very, very thorough job done. I think Dina has set them up for success to survive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dina is an MVP. Like, you go, girl.
Yes, yes. Sarah, what's your choice for Scrappiest Survivor?
I would like to give this to Shimmer for making that whole journey carrying both Ellie and Dina. Shimmer is doing work. Way to go.
Yeah, that was great. That was great. That horse is taking them far and wide. My choice for Scrappiest Survivor for this episode is nature's beauty in the Pacific Northwest. Like, there were so many stunning wide shots, and even in the apocalypse, like, nature's popping off. The mountains are gorgeous. The trees are gorgeous. It's thriving. It's doing its thing. All right, the next category is Grittiest Moment. What are your choices for this award?
So I actually went with Ellie and Tommy's exchange, specifically Tommy kind of popping off back at Ellie saying, "Don't talk to me like I didn't know him. He was my brother." I appreciated that. We were getting into some conflict between the two of them, which I thought was, I don't know, surprising, but maybe also natural, because I think Tommy knows that like what happened to Joel is because of him saving Ellie, and I don't know. So I thought there could be some fun stuff there. I don't know if they did much with it, but I don't know. I thought it was kind of a nice gritty moment between the relationship.
Yeah, I loved that moment, and that's what I think would have been interesting to see if the show wanted to explore a little bit more, is like Tommy's vote is complicated, like he has vowed to protect her, but then how does he do that while also wanting to avenge his brother's death at the same time too? And those things clashing is really interesting for what Tommy would do. So I wanted to know who those three votes were at the end, and ultimately, like, which one of those things won out for Tommy, too. That's a great choice. Sarah, what is your choice for Grittiest Moment?
My choice is Gail day drinking at a children's baseball game. That's a
great choice.
That is a rough time. Like, woo, okay, ma'am, you are holding down the fort. Ugh.
Well, and she's got like 2 empty bottles at her feet and an entire cooler next to her as well. So
yeah, she is turning up at this game.
Mm-hmm. Yep. My choice for Grittiest Moment is Maria's choice of language. So right before she reveals or opens up the voting, I just found it fascinating that she says, okay, so we're voting on sending out 16 of our people to go find this crew and execute them. I just thought that was like such a fascinating choice. I don't know if that was intentional from her. That's revealing of how Maria feels about this whole thing. But I remember feeling like, oh, like I felt the intensity of that language, and very fascinating choice of words and connotation. So I thought that was interesting. Gritty moment of language choice. All right, the next category is straight shooter word. What are your choices for this one? This is given to a line of dialogue.
"'Cause you're angry, Ellie, and no one's going to vote for angry." I thought that was
great.
Just really spot on for Jesse.
Love Jesse. Yeah, it's a great moment. Sarah, what's your choice?
Mine is when Dina says, "You're not crossing open country in chucks." It's like, yeah, girl, you tell her what's up.
My choice is Ellie to Gail. Don't worry, there's still a lot of effed up people in this town. You'll have a job.
Job security. Yes.
Security, yep. Okay, looking ahead, what are you excited to see coming up here in the next 4 episodes that we've got left?
Ugh.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think we did much this episode. So I think I'm just going to further echo what we talked about last week, at least for me. I want to see more of that character arc development. I'm happy we're out of Jackson. That's a plus. But like let's it should not have taken an episode to get outside the gates. So I really want to see episode 4 turn a corner. I want to see some action. I want to see some narrative get accomplished. I want to see multiple storylines get advanced. I think they owe us. I think there's a little bit of debt accruing for me. And I hope they start paying some of that back in episode 4.
Debt accruing. I love that. That's such a good way to say it.
Yes.
I love it. Sarah, what are you hoping to see? I think I said, what are you excited to say? What are you hoping to see next?
Okay, here, I will say, I am excited to see precisely one thing. And that is Jeffrey Wright is about to enter the Last of Us universe. And I'm excited about that. Jeffrey Wright is a great actor. He always brings 110% to every role. He's so good at explaining so much with just his eyes and his facial expressions. I'm ready for some Jeffrey Wright time. So that is what I am excited about. He is listed as a cast member in episode 4. I'm ready. I'm ready for this. What is Jeffrey Wright going to bring to the table? I don't know, but I'm here for it.
Nice. Yeah, that'll be fascinating. What type of character will he play, too? Dillon's probably got some ideas, I'm sure. But we're excited to see that happen next. I'm just excited for some action, honestly. I was hoping to get some by the end of this episode between Ellie and Dina and some foe in the wilderness. And I think that we will, based on the ending scene here. There's a clear cliffhanger of the wolves marching with all of their resources and ammunition. So I think we're in due for some thrill, and I'm ready for that. So if I'm not happy about a story, at least I can be thrilled by some action set pieces, you know? So I'm excited to see that happen next. There's some interesting, conversation that Dina and Ellie have, specifically Dina talking about Jesse and implying that there's a sadness in him. I'm just so intrigued by Jesse as a character. I'm wondering if we'll see more of him. I don't know. Dina and Ellie seem to be going on this journey, so he's not around. I don't know, but there's clear screen time given to developing his character and making it a little bit more complex, more nuanced, more layered, more sides of him. So I'm hopeful, unless that was just set up for nothing. But I think there's potentially more of Jesse, and I'm intrigued to learn more about him. He's a fascinating character, and I think there's more to his story to be told that we haven't gotten yet. So those are my 2 things.
Right? Time 2 on Jesse. There's something interesting about him, and I feel like the show is being so deliberate and hey, pay attention to this new character. Let's endear you to him so early. Oh, now they're on a journey and Jesse's not with them, but they're still talking about him. Yeah. They have to do something with this character. Otherwise, that's criminally bad writing. So we'll see when Jesse pops up again.
Yes. More sides to him than just the charismatic, one in the town that everyone seems to like. More complexity there. Okay, well, this was our review and discussion of episode 3. You can find it available on Max to stream. Thank you for listening to today's episode of TV and Us. Our name sums it up. We're big fans of TV and the powerful ways we can connect with each other and the world around us. This podcast is about all of us and our shared stories, so everyone is welcome here, and we're so glad you spent time with us today as we continued our journey through The Last of Us Season 2. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you tune to your favorite shows. Drop us a rating and review, letting us know your thoughts about this 3rd episode, some theories you have, rewrites that you have as well. You can connect with us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at tvnspod, or email us at tvnspod@gmail.com. Check out our website, andusmedia.co, for the latest on TV and Us and our other podcasts, Movies and Us. We'll be back soon, very soon here, to discuss episode 4 of this show. So stay tuned. In the meantime, we hope you have an amazing weekend. We'll talk again with y'all very soon.